Great. Glad we can finally make this happen.
Yeah, for sure. Bam, we're live. Good morning, everybody. Caleb, what's up, dude?
Good morning.
Caleb, Paul, Caleb.
Morning, Caleb. How you doing? Good to finally meet.
Paul Alkoby.
That is correct.
Did I say it right?
You did. You're one of the rare
Alkoby.
people to say it right.
Well, I cheated. I cheated. I did. I dug around and I heard on another podcast you were like, man, I've heard my name in every way. And when your name is Sevan, you've heard it in every way too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Alkoby. What kind of name is that?
It's Moroccan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that. Are both your parents Moroccan?
My dad is.
Oh, shit. Is he first generation in the United States?
Yep.
Wow. Have you been to Morocco?
Not yet. I was supposed to go 2014 when I was stationed overseas, and there was an incident and couldn't go.
Oh, that's not exactly the kind of trip. I heard it's amazing. I heard it is absolutely amazing. I heard it's a great place.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard there in Portugal are fantastic.
Actually, a weird segue. So Portugal actually, because of the Spanish Inquisition, is giving Jews that can prove their Sephardic Portuguese passports. So I'm actually in the application process for that. So.
Oh, that's the best kind of reparations I ever heard. That's enough.
Yeah.
Perfect. Plenty. Yeah, I love that. And hey, and who better to recruit than some Jews? Recruit some Jews and some Japanese, and fuck, your economy's up and running.
There it is.
in no time. Well, Sevi, that's racist. I know. I can't help it. It just is. It is that way. You bring in the Jews. It was funny. I had this guy on yesterday, and on the show who lived in or he grew up in a projects in Bronx, right? And the projects, he was describing the project is 3 20-story. It was 14 buildings in totality in the Bronx. It was like Castle Hill or something. Bad place. And it was 14 buildings, and 3 of them I think were 20-story buildings, and then the other 11 were smaller buildings. And I said, "Hey, do you know the history of those?" And as we started digging in the history, at first he was going to go down some sort of theory that they were built to basically experiment on blacks, put blacks in like this really tough situation, experiment on them, and that way you could bring them guns and drugs and just purposely fuck with them. He was going to kind of go down that. But quickly we realized, no, these buildings were built in New York to house Jews coming basically through Ellis Island. Basically,
that's crazy.
Basically leaving Europe. And we all know what happened to those Jews. I think it was in one of, I forget the guy's name. Who's that little tiny black dude who writes all those pop psychology books? They're really cool. He's a runner, skinny. Someone will say it in the comments. He's tiny. He's like 5'2", super thin. He wrote Outliers. He's the guy who popularized. He didn't create it,
Malcom Gladwell.
Malcom Gladwell. Thank you, Caleb.
Yep.
In one of Gladwell's books, he describes how basically, the Jews came here poor as shit. And, their the only profession that they had when they came from Europe was seamstress, basically clothing, the garment industry. And at that time in the United States, the garment industry was exploding because they found there was some sort of way where they could manufacture clothing, not clothing, I'm not going to say it right, but cloth faster. And so Jews started opening up fucking shitloads of cleaning services, seamstress services, clothing stores. And that was the boom of that industry in the United States. And then those Jews took all that money and made their kids doctors and lawyers and sent them to school.
Now everyone hates us, apparently.
No, they don't. That's just the hype.
Yeah, I know. It's
absolutely crazy. Jewish parents, quit telling your kids that. No one gives a shit that you're Jewish. Quit being so narcissistic.
Very true. There's I've had a lot of conversations recently with folks, just because I grew up in this more traditional household, and I'm not practicing, I mean, I, to be honest, didn't even want a bar mitzvah, but, my parents hate that. But I've had these conversations with people that just have never, especially being in the military. And at one point I lived in Eastern New Mexico, and I've met people in my life that have never met a Jew before. Yeah. And they had this idea of what like a Jewish person was. And, what they aren't. And I'm like, hey, I'm Jewish. They're like, we thought you were Italian or Greek or something. And I'm like,
I
no,
see it. I see it. I
North
see
African.
it. I see it. I see the Italian Greek guy in you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, my mom grew up in South Philly, so I guess by proxy, I'm slightly Italian.
We do my wife's Jewish. We do the menorah. We light the candles. We let the kids know about the holidays, but to say we're practicing, it's funny. We were invited to the temple in town, and they had a vaccine and mask policy, so that definitely wasn't going to fly. And then recently, about a week ago, a lady said who goes to her kids go to my kids' tennis clinic, invited us again to the temple. And I said, hey, do they require masks there? And she said, this is fucking last week. And she said, yes. And I said, sorry, these Jews aren't ever going to wear masks. These are non-mask wearing. Crazy.
Yeah, it's
masks.
Living in wild times. Yeah, that stuff is still wild to me. I was at the VA a few weeks ago, and I mean, their whole policy is still that, because it's federal government, obviously. And there's still occasionally places I'll go, being on the East Coast right now. And I usually am just kind of like, really? It's 2 years. And all the data's there, but okay.
I went into Whole Foods now twice in the last week in Santa Cruz. And I used to love going there with my kids, but I haven't been since in 2.5 years since they started enforcing all those rules. And half the people there are wearing masks. It is fucking bizarre. They're all old people too. By old, I mean my age and older.
I'll see people masking their kids up because of RSV and stuff. I actually I was a medic and I worked on a pediatric ward for 2 years, and I've had RSV patients in the past, stuff like that. And it's very interesting to me how we're kind of going from pandemic to pandemic to pandemic now, according to the media and, just a lot of those aspects out there right now.
You will guaranteed 100% damage your child by putting a mask on them. And you will also damage your child from having them around people with masks. Every single study that's been done on them, I've looked at 12 studies, it's 100% conclusive. There's no fucking way around it. Quit fucking telling yourself. I heard a really sad story the other day. A guy told me that he got an exemption for his kid to wear a mask during the pandemic, but everyone else in the school wears masks, and now the kid has a speech impediment because it's something like more than 50% of a kid learning words is lip reading. And so now the kid has fucking speech, and because when a kid doesn't understand a word, he automatically just goes straight to the lips. And I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
yes, you never quarantine the healthy. Thank you. You never, ever quarantine the healthy. It's on the CDC website. You never quarantine the healthy people. Ever, 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 ever. And scientists know that you never deploy a vaccine in the middle of a pandemic. This is the first time in world history that that's ever been done. None of the other vaccines, not polio, not measles, never deployed during the pandemic. Never deployed during the crisis. And why is that? Because those people don't offer herd immunity. What are you talking about, Sevan? Just go back and look a couple years ago when they had the measles outbreak at Disneyland. Do a little research, dig around. LA Times, most liberal fucking newspaper you can get. They talk about how half those kids who got the fucking measles at Disneyland were vaccinated. Well, that's weird. That's really weird. It's fucking all my friends whose kids got the chickenpox vaccine all got the chickenpox. That can't be good. It's fucking weird. We live in weird times. we live in. I just saw today this morning that the country of Ireland is now suggesting that all PE classes stop the bleep test. Are you familiar with the bleep test?
The beep test.
Yeah.
The pacer test.
Yeah.
Beep. Yeah. Oh, beep or bleep? Beep.
I know the article said
I think
bleep,
it's
but it's like the beep test or
beep
the pacer, the fitness gram pacer test.
This is the test where all the kids line up, like there's a 10-yard course, or 7-yard course, and all the kids have their hand on the fence, and you have 8 seconds to cross 10 yards, and you do that for a minute. And then after a minute, you only have 7 seconds. And then after another minute, you only have 6 seconds. And it's basically last man standing, right? You have to run back and forth in the amount of allotted time, and the time gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And they're now suggesting that that's bad for kids mentally because some kid has to lose. Like, go fuck yourself.
I used to win that every time.
You did?
Every time. Sorry,
Just added, Caleb.
He was the only one in the class, though. I forgot to mention
that.
Hey, I had to do the presidential fitness exam with the girls. I didn't have to. They had me do it because I just couldn't do any of the shit the boys could do.
I think they should just, incorporate the Secret Service snatch test for all grades.
What's that?
There you go.
What's that?
It's max snatches in, was it like 5 or 7 minutes, I think?
Yeah, it's with a kettlebell though.
Yeah, kettlebell snatches.
It's like
is that a CrossFit workout?
I think it became one.
Yeah, probably.
Secret Service max. Why do they call it that?
I think just because the Secret Service does it.
Oh, it's awesome. Wow, I like it. Paul, I don't know what happened in Afghanistan at all. Someone recently told me that it was a massive blunder because that base is so close to tactically or strategically, because it's so close to China. It was one of our closest bases to China. So that was a huge fuck up to vacate that. But other than that, I just remember seeing on the news, my only is seeing those giant airplanes covered with people, which was just fucking weird. And basically, I just saw the headlines that basically we left there in the wrong sequence. And because of that, it caused mad chaos. Can you kind of give me the backstory on why we left, what we were doing there in the first place? Can you give me the history? And what's the name of it? It's the airport in Kabul, right?
Yeah, so it was Hamid Karzai International Airport. HKIA is probably how I'll refer to it.
Hamid Karzai, and he was the leader of Afghanistan?
He was the president previously, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Action.
Yeah, so obviously we were in Afghanistan post 9/11. Multiple troop surges. Were there for 20 years. And I mean, this had been talked about for years. And Trump initially had started the kind of like retrograde of, and the withdrawal of getting everyone out. There had been multiple meetings between I believe they were in the UAE with the Taliban, stuff like that, where discussions were happening, right? And I think there's this idea amongst the mainstream media still that somehow the Afghans were fit to defend themselves post-withdrawal, which if you talk to any service member or anyone that had worked in the region, that's just not the truth. Personally, I actually
we couldn't even defend our own Capitol building on January 6th from a bunch of dudes dressed in Halloween costume with no guns and no fire, and they expected those people to protect their airport.
It's they were heavily reliant on U.S. forces, and especially by this point, special operations primarily because of the withdrawal that had taken place. So July 6, 2021, the U.S. withdrew from Bagram Airfield. So, that was kind of our last base in the region, essentially. And after that, the Taliban kind of just rolled through Afghanistan. They took Kandahar, I think, August 5th or August 6th, I believe. And then, August 15th or 16th was when they actually took Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan.
And what's wrong with the Taliban? They're basically it's a dictatorship. It's what's their deal? Why are they such bad guys? I mean, besides the fact that they bombed our buildings.
Well, I mean, the Taliban didn't directly. They were, however, supportive of Al-Qaeda, the entity that did, right? So they carried out those attacks, and the Taliban essentially was looked at as the governing body of Afghanistan at the time, which, I mean, they were harboring terrorists according to the U.S. government and, NATO in general. So we ended up there.
And they're the people, they do bad shit. Like if your wife cheats on you, they kill her. They have some, they got some weird rules around boys
going to school.
They don't believe in women going to school.
They don't believe in women really doing anything. I'll talk about one of the stories, but And she actually reached out to me yesterday, but an Afghan woman we evacuated, she had been kidnapped and tortured by the Taliban for weeks before she was able to escape, and we were able to work on an exfil plan for her and get her out of the country.
And why was she tortured? Not that there's ever an excuse
She was
for
a
it.
professor.
Okay. So she
Yeah.
was a professor, and women aren't supposed to be educated. She was probably teaching other women, and so she had to be punished.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
what
obviously
does
she was
torture look like?
Americanized.
What does torture look like?
So I put this out a little bit, and I don't really reveal any personal information about her, but she was raped. She was, tied up. And I mean, I'm talking, there were multiple people involved in all of this. Obviously, the Taliban is a pretty savage organization. No matter how they want to paint it now, all this same stuff that they said wouldn't happen is starting again there. But she was, brutally tortured for weeks on end, beat, starved, just locked in a room essentially. And I mean, she suffers the effects of it now, severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, everything that comes with that. But she's a fighter and she survived. And I mean, I've had multiple encounters of dealing with women that were in the same situation as her. I did help a family where a professor was she was much luckier in this regard because she realized that her students actually dimed her out. So she was basically just dimed out by her own students that she had been teaching, and she figured it out. I guess a student had kind of given her a heads up, and she was able to go into hiding, and they got out probably about 4 months ago, and they made it to Europe.
So when you say tortured, all the worst shit you could ever think of.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty barbaric, the stuff that would happen over there. And even during everything going on, I mean, I planned on bringing this up. He had just recently separated from the Marine Corps. His name's Mike Wahlberger. He had put out a video during the withdrawal of his unit's kind of experience there. And the stuff that you see happening in the crowds, you'll actually see the Taliban in the crowds beating people with rifles, beating people with sticks, all kinds of just inhumane things that were going on there. And I mean, I'm talking like, the butt of a rifle to someone's head. So there's a lot that was at play there.
Okay. So there were people there that the only thing stopping them from having these horrific things happen to them, starvation, rape, stuff that if someone did to our mom or sister, we would go kill them.
Pretty
or our
much,
daughters. Yeah. And and that was happening to them. And the only thing stopping that from happening, at least openly, was the fact that there was U.S. presence there.
Yes. U.S. and NATO for sure.
Yeah. And is NATO still there?
No.
So did they leave at the same time the U.S. left or before?
NATO. Yeah, pretty much. Everyone kind of bounced at the same time.
And whose decision was it to leave, and why did we leave?
So, I mean, it was the decision started during the Trump administration. I mean, it was, I would say the American public was kind of fed up, to be honest. We were kind of done. And I mean, rightfully so. I've lost friends in Afghanistan. I worked on, wounded patients out of Afghanistan, stuff like that. And I, can wholeheartedly say that I think people were just sick of seeing, fellow Americans and I mean, NATO allies coming home in body bags, for 20 years. So especially when the mission wasn't really clear anymore.
So the current administration is the one that pulled the final troops out.
Yes. So what ended up happening was they sent, I believe it was 6,000 total, soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, all in to do the final withdrawal and actually help evacuate allies.
How many? 6,000?
I believe it was 6,000.
And how many were there before those? How many? You sent in 6,000 people to evacuate how many people?
The total estimates, I want to say, this is just what I recall seeing were, I believe, 35,000 total
Okay.
allies that got out.
And does that include Afghanis?
Oh yeah, that's Afghans, American citizens, stuff like that.
I saw 90,000 somewhere.
That could be more accurate.
Okay.
More specifically, I mean, that could definitely be more accurate.
Okay.
So,
I just saw it
I don't want to
recently
say
when
what
I was
I'm
looking.
saying is
Okay. Okay.
like total accuracy. I have a lot of numbers going on in my head with this, but yeah.
In my country, also, girls and women are deprived of many things. Sex inequality is big. Sorry, I had to edit for the correct usage of the word. Sex inequality is big. Only small minority of real men know how to treat and respect women.
I'm curious what country that is.
I mean, for starters, just you don't even have to respect them. Just don't disrespect them.
Yeah, don't torture them.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to respect anyone. Yeah, just don't disrespect people.
Like and that's the thing, right? Human rights.
And thank you, Nirmo, for that. I appreciate you sharing that. By the way, sorry. Go ahead.
The lack of human rights there is the biggest issue, right? And these people were essentially made this promise by the U.S. government and our allies that we were gonna give them democracy, give them education, give them all this stuff, and then essentially we held their hands in terms of how we did things. And I mean, this is reported on multiple levels now, where the military was kind of, individuals in the military, leadership in the military was kind of misreporting what was going on the ground. And there were, a few Afghan units in the special operations realm that could hold their own and stuff like that. But the overwhelming majority could not. And that's what we saw, is that the majority of the Afghan units just kind of dropped their weapons and were like, cool, bye, we're out, and just kind of gave up.
And this is prior to, you're talking about prior to the evacuation.
Prior. And that's when all the, like Kandahar fell, all the other provinces fell, leading up to when the Taliban basically rolled into Kabul, like, what's up, we're here.
I'm going to jump ahead real quick and then we'll go back. What happens to our Afghan, like you hear about how successful Nigerians are who come to this country as a whole, as a demographic. How do Afghanis do once they come here?
So the Afghans that have come here are, it's kind of mixed, right? So I'll go off of what I know and the direct interactions I've had. So the first individual I brought over here, with the help of his former interpreter, Corey Maza, amazing guy. He was a Harvard grad, was in the Marine Corps, and Zabi was actually his interpreter. So we got Zabi out. He was I can get into the backstory of that for sure. It was a pretty crazy situation. So we get him out. He gets over here. There were some problems getting him here, whatnot, but he transitioned into a decent job. He works in retail somewhere, and he's just doing his thing. And he's able to transition because he already had an education. He already, spoke the language, already had this kind of base of knowledge. There are other Afghans that came here, and this is directly, from Zabi, and when he was actually in one of the refugee camps that were, a lot of these folks are from the mountains. There were individuals that were brought here that really had no ties to the U.S. as well. So they're a cousin of a cousin who had a friend that was in the Afghan army, and they basically let them slide and get into HKIA and get on a plane and come here. So Zabi would see these individuals in these refugee camps literally just taking a shit on the floor because they'd never used a bathroom.
Right.
So you have this vast difference where you had individuals in the major cities who were living a somewhat westernized life for years, and then you have these people that had never even seen a toilet before.
Right.
So you can kind of get everything in between as well.
And have they found a city like there's a city in Maine, which is bizarre to me, which is like the largest congregation of Brazilians. Is there a city in Detroit and Cleveland were huge for like Armenians, and Los Angeles was huge for Armenians. Pakistanis and Indians have come to the Bay Area. Is there a city where the Afghanis are going? The Afghans?
So
Are they Afghanis or Afghans?
Afghans.
Afghans.
Afghani is the currency. So
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
yeah.
They're nothing but a dollar to me. Okay, the Afghans. Where do the Afghans go? Do they have a city where they're huddling
spread
up?
out. They're spread out, but there were a good amount that actually I do know there was a good influx into Virginia.
Okay.
Various cities in Virginia.
Well, they still shit on the floor there, so that's good. That's a good training ground for them.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia, interesting state, but no, there's definitely an influx there. And I know a few cities in the Midwest. One of our really really crazy stories. He's up in the New England region, and that guy's story. We jokingly during his whole deal, I gave him the nickname Ganwick, Afghan Wick, because while we were getting him out, he ended up actually having to smoke a few Taliban that had basically a hit squad showed up to get him and his family on his way out of the house.
I heard that story on one of your other podcasts.
Yeah.
Crazy. We'll get to those.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a decision to do a final withdrawal, but from the current administration. And was that a public announcement? What happened? What went wrong? I mean, is it fair to say something went wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
They basically announced they were going to pull out as fast as possible. They set a date to get to, which was the deadline, and started the withdrawal process. Within that, what wasn't really considered was how many people were going to show up in Kabul and try to get into the gates at the airport, because people weren't being evacuated. VIPs were getting out of the country. That was, I mean, a given, right? Like there were a lot of VIPs that were able to get out kind of in the early days, and they were just
ambassadors, people with
easy.
Money, people who got pregnant from the general's son, shit like that.
Pretty much, yeah. And then once that kind of
and how would they get out? A military plane would land, and they would all load onto it, or it would be commercial jets.
To my knowledge, it was primarily military evacuations at that time.
And then they would get.
There were still commercial flights. To be clear, I don't know the number of commercial flights, but there were.
And then they would get visas from the U.S. government to make it legal when they landed in the U.S., so that they would be here and they could land and not be deported.
Under refugee status, asylum status, stuff like that. Yeah.
Did we send anyone back?
I don't know. Actually, that's a really good question. I've wondered that because I had people in camps. They were in the refugee camps, and they would tell me that, especially like the guys from the Panjshir region, stuff like that, they're like, hey, there's Taliban here. And at one point, these guys wanted to basically, kill these dudes that they suspected of being Taliban, because they're like, they're here. Like, these are fucking Taliban. And I had to be like, hey, go find a NCO or an officer and tell them, do not do this, because you will end up screwed over.
Why not? Sorry, I'm just depending on you as the all-knowing. Why not run to Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, or Iran? Why not?
So
cross?
A lot of people did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uzbekistan. These are all bordering countries of Afghanistan, by the way.
Yeah. Yep. And people did. And the other side of it too, like especially with like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, all that stuff. The terrain there is insane. I mean, we're talking, insane mountain ranges that like hundreds of thousands of miles of just mountains, and traversing that on foot is heavy. And a lot of people did make it out. Like there are stories of people kind of traversing that even into the dead of winter. There were, I think it was like 80 refugees that were found, and they were like barefoot in the dead of winter, just trying to get into Iran.
Wow. I did yesterday try to map routes out of there using Google Maps, and everywhere I chose for them, it says no route available.
Yeah.
And then I started
I
looking
mean,
for
now,
road
no, there's definitely no roots.
yeah, and I was looking for road networks and shit, 7-Elevens, and nothing.
Yeah.
No
No, definitely no
Starbucks, nothing.
7-Elevens. Nope.
Uh,
You know,
go,
they had McDonald's before. I don't think they're there anymore, though.
okay, so then, this is where the story gets really, really bizarre. This is one of the most fascinating stories ever because there's an element to it that you can't even believe is happening. I'm trying to think of a analogy for it or a parallel to it that's happened somewhere. It's kind of like, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but when Apple released Final Cut Pro in the early 2000s, all of a sudden what took millions of dollars to do, because before if you wanted to edit video, it took millions of dollars. You needed to get equipment that cost millions of dollars.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden overnight, you could plug a laptop into, overnight, literally people, you could plug a laptop into a cigarette lighter and start editing with this software. And then you could start making your own movies, TV shows, news stories, whatever. This is a group of people who did the job of, I don't know whose job it is, but let's say, just for lack of a better term, that these people did the job of the fucking U.S. military and of the U.S. government. You would have to think that the ability to organize and move people, that there's no greater organization in the world than the U.S. military. I think it's, I mean, I'm thinking maybe it could be some sort of cruise ships might have some ability to do something crazy like that, some cruise ship company, but it can't compare to what the U.S. military can do. They can move people with aircraft carriers, with planes, with vehicles. They can protect them. And yet a bunch of dudes just sitting around on their computers in the United States using WhatsApp technology and guys on the ground and iPhones and Androids organize evacuating people and saving their lives. And these people weren't, I mean, you weren't paid for this, right?
No. I was on I had a corporate job at the time. I was doing video for a company in Florida, and I was on paid time off. Just
did the U.S. government ever offer you money after the fact where they were like, hey, here's $500,000 for your service?
No, we were recognized in a bunch of the organizations involved were recognized by Senate. So
fuck you.
They said they'll, I don't know what that means, but
doesn't mean shit. I cannot believe they didn't retroactively pay you. I cannot believe they didn't pay you.
I mean, none of us did it obviously for money. We just kind of did it because we saw a need to help people survive, and it affected a lot of people close to us or people directly. So everyone got involved, and I mean, I have no regrets on it at all. I think my only regrets are the people I couldn't help, if anything, but no regrets on time or anything. So.
Are you going to write a book?
I've been writing. I don't know if it's going to turn into a book, but I've definitely been writing a lot. And I thought I had lost all my transcripts of everything because I had changed my phone and my laptop out, and Signal, it kind of since Signal's encrypted, once you change over, if you don't basically archive everything, it'll disappear. And I screwed up and lost everything on my phone. So now I have all those transcripts, fortunately. So
you found a way to get them back.
Yeah. So
okay, so I want to go back to this moment. So basically, what happened is we're going to pull out, and the people who were panicking for their lives because of their affiliation with the new regime and the U.S. way of life, not raping and torturing women, flooded the airport. And what? And you spent 4 years in the U.S. military as a medic, Air Force medic.
Yes.
Okay. And how long had it been since you'd been out?
Well, I got out in 2016, and I was a military contractor for 3.5 years after that.
By the way, that sounds like that could be its own show.
Some aspects were fun. For the most part, I was an instructor, one side of things, and then worked in some other stuff after that.
But you saw crazy shit. You saw you speak of the contract world. I think your word is murky.
There are murky contracts for sure. My side of it definitely wasn't. I got to actually support some very legitimate stuff, and was very fortunate to have had that opportunity.
Okay, so you're out of the contract space. You have you had a corporate job. Can you tell us what your corporate job was?
Yeah, so I was doing a full-time video for a firearms company.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like out of Florida.
Yep.
Okay, and meaning part of their marketing team, part of their team to let people know that, hey, these bullets exist, these guns exist. Okay.
Yeah, these guns are decent in quality. I say that very skeptically now.
And so then when you tell me about how you get involved in the evacuation. No details too small, from the earliest. Like, you're sitting around, you have your feet up, you have your arm around your girlfriend, your dog, you're just vomited on the carpet, and you're like, shit, should I clean it up? And you look over at your phone and.
Yeah, so I've been watching everything kind of unfold on some of the like open source news Instagrams and some other pages on Instagram. And I started kind of getting concerned. I was definitely just watching things, and my really
were you
good
deployed
buddy,
over there? Sorry, as a medic, were you deployed? No, okay.
I was never in Afghanistan. Yeah, okay. Never. And I was actually just very disgruntled at my job. I was like, let me use my paid time off for this. So my really good buddy Chris hit me up, and he had told me his good friend JT, his interpreter's wife was still stuck there, and she needed help getting out. So that kind of pulled me in the door, because Chris knows me very well, and Chris knows, like, once it's like it's for the cause, it's for the cause. And I jumped on board and started kind of helping to get them out. And I started.
How do you know even where to start? Like, if someone were to tell me, hey, a friend of mine's stuck in Afghanistan, what should I do? I'd be like, get a fucking map and start walking.
I kind of just reached out to my network. The first person I reached out to was actually on a PSD, like protective detail for a high-ranking general. And I knew he had just been in the country. I knew he still might be in the country. So I shot him a text. I'm like, hey, man, do you happen to know anyone that might be able to help me? And he got me in touch with a guy who was still at the airport. He's a conventional Army dude. He's not like special operations, he's just a regular
some kid from Georgia who wanted to get away from his stepdad who was beating him and fucking join the military.
Maybe. Yeah.
So and now he's working the airport in Kabul with a gun over his shoulder, hanging out with his buddies.
Dude's an absolute stud. He ended up being an absolute game changer for us throughout the entire operation. Like, this dude put his life on the line so many times. And I would if it came down to it and I could get this kid the recognition he deserves, like, I would 100% do it. So spoke to him, spoke to a few other assets that I thought might be going into the region, and kind of got stuff in motion. The problem ended up being that the people she was with, I literally had them 30 feet away from the gate and to get pulled in, and the guy got spooked and basically took everyone and ran away. So we couldn't get her in.
Okay, let me paint this picture again. Someone calls you and says, hey, Paul, your buddy Chris calls you and says, hey, Paul, my buddy JT, who had an interpreter in Afghanistan, has a wife who's stuck there. Can you get her out? You said, let me see. So you called a dude who does protective service for a high-ranking general there who happened to be inside the airport. So then what do? You send a picture. What?
So they had left. They evacuated the country at that point.
Who had?
Because, the general.
Oh, the general had, but left his dude behind.
He bounced. Yeah. No. He went with them. They all bounced. They were like,
another friend of that friend.
Another friend of that friend. Okay.
So that dude's friend happened to be there.
And so you get that dude's phone number, and you're like, hey, dude, I know this is fucking batshit crazy, but I'm going to send you a picture of this fucking chick. When she walks up to the gate, can you open the door?
That's basically what was happening. Yeah.
This is fucking nuts. This is fucking nuts. And meanwhile, he's got to pick her out like it's fucking like at fucking
Where's
Walmart
Waldo?
and fucking Virginia on Black Friday. It's like
So that's
fucking
where-
everyone's descending to get their PS3, and you're like, yo, how do you even open the gate and just let one in?
You don't.
It's like
if the videos kind of show it pretty accurately. And I mean, at this point, it was still pretty, like, stuff was getting chaotic, right? So you had all these people just converging. Yeah. So that's Abbey Gate. That's actually the same gate where the IED went off. And that's pretty much what was happening was these people would be getting pulled over the wall, and that's a sewage ditch covered, so you got razor wire there.
that's poop. That's poop. That's pooped in there.
Oh yeah.
Poo and pee.
I mean,
from the airport,
shit,
like
blood,
you take a piss and shit.
Dead people.
Yeah.
No, like people. I mean, a lot of people were just there, right? So there you have these like thousands and thousands of people.
No porta potties.
No porta potties.
Not up to code. That evac wasn't up to code. What do you mean pull people over the gate? I see razor wire.
Yeah. There's another photo.
There's not even a gate to open there.
So these dudes, these are the PJs that, and I'd love to get more into this, but these are Air Force PJs. So they're a special operations component of the Air Force. Guy in the center is a Crow, so he's an officer. The other two are PJs. They were, and many other, Marines, corpsmen, soldiers were all pulling people up and basically vetting these people before they could get in. So that's
could you have gotten in trouble for this, Paul? Could you have were you ever concerned that the FBI would or CIA would show up to your house and be like, "Hey, asshole, you're interfering in international shit"?
So I was definitely concerned about that. There were points where I was like, okay, there are lines that I cannot cross here. There are things that I cannot do.
You were basically using the U.S. military for your own personal benefit. I mean, I'm using fucking like something like some asshole lawyer would say to you. Who are you to save people's lives over there?
Well, so what we ended up doing, my philosophy on this and the team I was working with. So I'd been in these Signal chats and been dealing with, primarily I would deal with Americans on Signal because Afghans used WhatsApp, which is a beautiful Andrew Scholes reference because third world nations use WhatsApp. So what we would end up doing is
third world nations and Australia, by the way. So go figure. You figure that out.
I mean, Australia almost became a third world nation during COVID. So
yes.
But pretty much what we would do, we would intake any of these allies or American citizens' information, and we would then work on vetting that information, make sure that the people that were going were the right people, make sure they had the correct documentation, and then we would use some type of call sign that the individuals on the ground could then reference to get these people in. Essentially trying to make it as safe as possible because these people were already there. We weren't doing anything of I would say utilizing the government for personal gain or anything like that. These people were already going to the airport. We were just trying to make sure it was as safe as possible.
So you would get, I just looked up on Google typical Afghan names. So the guy you would be trying to get into the airport, Ahmed Muhammad.
Mukhtar,
Ahmed Muhammad Ali. Okay. You would tell him, hey, it's you're gonna do 2 middle fingers and then touch them together, and then they're gonna call you over, and then you hand them this paper, and that's how they're gonna know it's you.
Similar, yeah. Or we would have them hold. I don't know if I posted a photo of it, but we would have them actually hold up stuff like that.
Oh, I like that.
Phones. Yeah,
Jolly
so that's
Pedro.
actually a pararescue call sign. And I just want to continuously say this. The pararescue and the rescue community that were on the ground at HKIA are still severely under-recognized for what they did during these efforts. And flyers, a ton of airmen, 51 in total, were just awarded Distinguished Flying Crosses for their efforts. The guys that were actually on the ground have pretty much received no recognition whatsoever. So I just want to really put a ton of respect out to those guys.
How many American soldiers were inside those gates?
To my knowledge, a little over 6,000.
I wonder if they were, and how many people were outside the gates? Were there estimates on the crowd outside?
It's just impossible to even know. I do know that someone that was working with my team, they did work for a defense contractor that they were able to kind of have better estimates and see what was going on. And it was, I mean, a sea of people. Like if you have if you can find any of the overhead imagery from during that, it was a sea of people.
Did you
Like
guys get in any
hundreds of
trouble?
thousands of people.
Did you guys get in any trouble for using the name Pedro, that it was considered racist? Like it was some sort of Mexican reference.
So that's actually a pararescue call sign.
Oh, Jolly
so
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Pedro is the rescue crews. And then so they I think Vietnam, they called them Jolly Green Feet because they use the pararescue and rescue community use green feet as their symbol essentially. So
that guy would hold a sign, and then they would so they wouldn't open a gate because that would be too crazy. They would just start pulling people over through some sort of gap in the razor wire. The U.S. soldiers would cut a gap in the razor wire, and God, they must have been terrified because if for some reason someone showed up with a jackhammer or something and drilled that wall down or ran a truck into it, you would have a situation where
and that was a fear, right? Like they knew there were active threats. And we ran into some encounters that we were definitely worried of other attacks. Specifically, when we were trying to evacuate Laura Bush's school children, that was a real thing.
Tell me that story. What are Laura Bush's school children? These are people that Laura Bush sponsored, Afghans?
Yes. Yeah. So Laura Bush has a program for school children. An individual named Rob.
Sorry. So this is why it's so bizarre, dude. Everyone who's listening. This is the former fucking first lady. And instead of fucking using the U.S. military to fucking land fucking a Chinook and fucking send in special forces to get her kids out, they got a dude who wants a fucking break from his corporate job and is on his fucking PS3 just saving people. It's so bizarre to me.
In my underwear.
Yeah, seriously, you were, huh? You were in your living room in your underwear?
I was literally in my underwear. I didn't sleep
just with like the coffee maker on full blast.
Yeah, I ran out of food at one point. I forgot to eat. Ran out of food. It was pretty hectic. But yeah, so this whole.
Did you have a girlfriend at the time?
I didn't know, thankfully.
Oh, yeah, she'd have been pissed. Okay,
she'd have been real pissed. But my imaginary girlfriend was pissed. We'll go with that.
All right. So Laura Bush, the Laura Bush thing. How does that happen?
Well, Laura Bush didn't contact me directly. I don't know if she contacted anyone directly, to be honest. But so Rob, who shout out to Rob, he is a legend.
You know who that is, Caleb? What Rob he's referring to?
He does. Yep.
I think Rob so. Yeah. We worked together in a few of the CrossFit events. He helped volunteer for the medical coverage. He's a really nice guy.
Wow. Small world.
Speaking of CrossFit, I don't know if you remember this, Sevan. 2017 or 2018 East Regional, the guy that gave you coffee. That was me. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah.
I do remember that because I thought that was so fucking nice. Yeah. I think we were like interviewing Ben Bergeron or Katrin or something. We'd set up like a makeshift interview thing at the top of the stadium in Albany, right? And you would come over with some coffee. Yeah, that was crazy fucking generous of you. That name of that coffee company was Alpha Brew?
Yep, Alpha Brew Coffee.
Are they still around?
We're still around. It's a little bit of a hiatus at the moment. We're trying to restructure some stuff, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to Alpha Brew. And I think maybe I went by and took advantage of you guys and maybe got like a free coffee late. We
would have given you free. We gave you free coffee all weekend because we wanted to.
Yeah. I think you did. Yeah, I appreciate it. Me and the whole team. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was a good event. But yeah, no. So pretty much the way this would work, and this happened with numerous politicians and people that should not have been calling American civilians and asking for help. That would kind of leverage. They would say, "Oh, my constituents have this request." It's like, well, your constituents don't even know this person. So that's just how it went. But the story basically from this one was Rob reached out to me. Rob was a former military contractor. He's a firefighter now. He was like, hey, Laura Bush's school children are stuck on a bus, and there were like 60 of them, I believe, stuck on this one or two buses, and there were a few different gates, and one of them was kind of run by the Afghan. It's called NDS. They were like trained by the CIA. They're kind of like a special operations force, and we had to get them in that gate. We were encountering issues because the only way to get American citizens in at the time was to have an American escort those citizens in. There were no Americans at this gate. So we basically had the buses sitting there trying to figure out how to get an American over to the gate. But the governing body,
American, could it be a soldier or it had to be a citizen?
A soldier or a contractor.
Okay. Well, if there's 6,000 guys in there, why couldn't someone just walk over there and be like, yo,
no one could move.
Oh.
So what ended up happening, there were active threats. And it came down to a point where no one basically was able to move because the State Department, I believe, put down an order that no one could move due to threats, which I understand in that logic. But at the time, it was endangering American lives as well, especially when those operators, soldiers, airmen, Marines, contractors, everyone that was in that facility was ready to move to go help people. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they were there to do. And there was a total disconnect between basically the organizations on the ground and in DC. And that's, that's how it goes, right? That's how, this is a real world operation that was happening real time. And they were doing what they thought was protecting people. And to my knowledge, it could have, right? It very well could have saved lives. But what ended up happening was this contracted Afghan bus driver is calling us and saying, hey, there's a ISIS spotter looking at us. We need to leave. And we're like, how do you know it's ISIS? He's like, I've lived here my whole life. That's a fucking ISIS guy. And he basically just bailed. He took these 60, I think it was 62 schoolgirls and just dipped. He bounced out of there. And there were some American citizens on that bus. And this was kind of a frequent thing.
So they could have got in anyway, since there were American citizens on there. And in hindsight, they could have come in.
No, they couldn't, because it had to be an American that had to escort them from the gate.
Oh, so it had to be someone already inside the gate had to vouch for you. Was it that simple? Was it that simple though? As long as there was an American who said, so if I was there as a soldier and I just saw some lady and I thought she was cute, I could just be like, yeah, I vouch for her.
No, because you would have to have the correct documentation, right? So it was these American service members would be able to go do a grab that person, whatever, get them in, but they had to have the right documentation.
Are you single now?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. You heard it right.
Great question. Now. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I only picked the important ones.
And I don't want to put this on any of the commands or any of the agencies there. I think there were just a lot of disconnects between. So CENTCOM saying one thing, SOCOM saying another thing, the State Department saying another thing, and that was kind of the problem.
What happened to the bus?
They eventually got in.
They did.
Yeah. So they're what kind of. To go to backtrack a little bit, what ended up happening, so I was on these signal chats and I was working to get people out, and this former Green Beret, John Reed, reached out to me, and super nice guy. He was a special forces medic, and reached out to me, and he's like, hey man, it looks like you're doing a lot of good work. I think we both kind of have the same interests and we both have good networks. It looked like a lot of the groups we were involved in were kind of being infiltrated by state actors and other things because they're just letting everyone in. So John reached out to me. He's like, hey, do you want to...
What does that mean, state actors? I'm sorry. I was going to try to pretend like I knew what that meant.
We don't know if they were Taliban, if they were Russian, if they were Chinese. We don't know.
Okay, so inside of this ragtag group, you started thinking that maybe you'd been infiltrated by some bad actors.
Yes. So and that was in various different components because we were watching in these signal chats, just all the information that was going into those chats would somehow basically go to shit. right? So we're like, what is going on here? So John hit me up. We decided to kind of form our own task force of sorts and bring in only vetted people that we knew.
And this is what you guys called the network.
Yeah. So we jokingly called it the network because we weren't concerned with putting a name on it at the time, right? Like jokingly, someone else called it Al Peyote to someone at one point, and we were just worried about getting people out. Like I had multiple requests for interviews. John did as well. Like CNN had contacted me. It just wasn't on our agenda. We were worried about people on the ground and getting them out.
For those of you who don't, I'll say this. I don't know how Paul's going to respond to this, but from the little bit of research I did, Paul is estimated to have saved 1,000 people's lives, gotten 1,000 people out of Afghanistan who would have otherwise not got out of Afghanistan, and that he was the most successful person in the world at that time at organizing, or that team that Paul was. Would you say you were the hub for sort of the comms hub?
So I don't want to. I definitely don't want to call myself the most successful. I
saw it in the Washington Post. I saw in the Washington Post they called you the most successful at doing this. So I'll say it.
Washington Post can call me that. I'll take.
Even though they're fucking liars. I wish someone else would have said it. They are liars of the highest order. But I'm going to agree with them this time.
I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment coming from you.
Yep. I'm going to grab my ankles for you, buddy.
So the best way to kind of explain the way it transpired was we would be kind of that middleman. So we had people reaching out to us, whether they were it was their interpreter, an Afghan soft type, like special operations type that they worked with, or other, and then politicians, celebrities at some points, just random phone calls that we would get. And we would take that information, vet those people, and then if they needed to, the perfect instance of this was Ganwick. We would facilitate some type of extract, whether it was vehicle movement or just them somehow getting to a specific point to be picked up, stuff like that, to the airport, and then get out. So that was kind of how we played that role. We didn't want to. We had people on the ground. We were utilizing them. We weren't trying to, do anything crazy in terms of getting people killed. That was our biggest goal.
Were there any? Did you have any American soldiers or contractors who were outside the gate?
There were people at points outside the gate.
And how crowded was the airport getting? Was there ever a concern that too many people were going to get in? Was it ever getting overcrowded inside the airport?
I mean, there were multiple times where the airport was. I mean, even in the early days, the airport was overrun. That's what those images you saw of people falling off the plane, stuff like that. That's because the airport was completely overrun.
Imagine how scared you'd have to be for your life to throw your. Was that throwing the baby shit over the fence real?
Yes.
Imagine throwing your baby over the fence, being so scared. That's some Auschwitz shit. That's like some Jews on the train shit. Like, here, take my kid.
That was that video I told you about, Mike Wahlberger. I'll actually send you guys a link to that after. They used a lot of, so he actually was got into some shit because of that video, but they used a lot of that footage in an HBO documentary that came out recently. It's it's pretty crazy, the stuff that was I can't even begin to imagine what those folks on the ground were seeing, and especially. Obviously, 13 American lives were lost on an IED blast at Abbey Gate, but people were desperate. People were there to run for their lives, escape a regime change that they were certain they were going to die.
Right.
So
the thing with the raping of the women, man.
Yeah,
it's like, it's too much.
Yeah, and I mean,
and was there ever a gun battle at that airport? Was there ever a fight at the airport?
During the IED blast, There were I've talked to people that were there during that, and they explicitly told me that they had rounds flying at them.
But did the U.S. military ever fire back, or they couldn't because they didn't know who they did fire back?
I mean, there's reports of that where, I mean, they had that IED blast come, and I mean, usually that comes with an attack. That's, you know, that guy was the guy that blew himself up wearing a suicide vest, was at the most congested point. He was at a checkpoint.
How many how many other people died? How many people died in totality? Do you know?
I don't know offhand.
But there were like women and children there. Sure, clearly,
it was women just and children. Everyone under the sun was at that gate. That was. There were a few other gates that were operating.
Imagine shooting your enemy. Imagine shooting someone in the back or killing someone who's trying to run from you, who actually has never done any harm to you. Like, I'm trying to understand. Like what Mexico's doing is they're just letting their bad guys come over the border. I would think that the Taliban would have been like, yeah, we'll help everyone get out who wants to get out. You know what I mean?
Their belief system is that, you know, they're going to basically handle that because those people don't believe in what they believe in.
Fuck, let them leave then.
Yeah, so
Kenneth, it's like having a bad guest at your house and they want to leave and instead you kill them. It's
Kenneth like, the Lap said a bunch of Marines died. That's what I was talking about with the 13 service members. So it was 11 Marines, a corpsman, and a soldier that passed away that day.
Crazy.
And you know, that was a very tense moment because the teams we were working with were at that gate. One of the conventional soldier I'd mentioned earlier, he was kind of floating between gates, and I actually was dealing with him quite a bit because he was at it was called Black Gate, and that was a gate run by more agencies. Yeah, so those are the 13, you know, and that was an incident that they unfortunately knew was coming. They were told of the threats, like that. Everyone knew there was a serious threat.
You don't like this part of it?
No, that
your speech gets all because your speech gets all weird when you talk about this part. You don't, you don't like this part.
Yeah,
makes sense.
You know, there were a lot of life lost that could have been prevented, I think.
Meaning what? With a better system at the gate to let people in and out?
I think just a better system for all of this. If it had been, the withdrawal had not been so abrupt, if we didn't, you know, just task service members that weren't even in country to come and get people out in horrible conditions with no real semblance of a plan.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Part of me wants to be like, hey, they should have never announced the withdrawal and they should have just withdrew. But then if they would have done that, then people wouldn't have known that, fuck, it's time to leave.
Yes and no. But also the way it's so obviously Afghan culture is much different than ours. And we encountered this throughout. It's basically, you know, whisper down the lane. So we would have people that would somehow get a hold of our call signs. Somehow, you know, or families would we'd be under the impression it was going to be 2 people, and families would show up with 13 people. And they're like, well, you know, I got to bring my cousin, my neighbor, his wife, the guy from across town that, you know, sells us shoes, whatever. And that's just the cultural difference there. And that's what would have happened. Even, I mean, I still think I think over a year period, if they had worked, I mean, and I'm not, you know, by no means am I claiming to be an expert here on logistics or anything like that. Just my thought process is, if they had done things slower, I think this could have been preventable.
I think a clear sign that something went completely fucking wrong is that Paul Alkoby is even involved in this story. The fact that some random dude is saving 1,000 people, you should have never been put in that situation. I mean, I'm sure I mean, I'm glad you did do it, and I'm glad you got the opportunity to it. If you take the 100,000-foot view, what a great life experience you had. Like, what a cool fucking thing to say. You know, you go apply at Facebook, and they're like, "Can you work quickly with a large group?" Oh, yes, actually, I can. I'm maybe the best in the world at it. Fuck, they need you at Twitter. Elon should fucking hire you to work at Twitter. God, you'd be fucking amazing at Twitter. You should be an executive at Twitter.
Someone set that up. Let's go. I'm unemployed right now, kind of. I have
my God.
at the moment, so let's go.
Fuck, you would kill at Twitter. Oh, we're gonna build a wall around here.
I'm not gonna get too into the Tim Kennedy piece. That's a touchy one for a lot of people, and if any of you want to look into that yourselves, you can.
Why don't you want to get? I don't know about it, but I know that there's two groups of people. There's people who love him, and there's people who can't stand him. Is that why? Did something go weird with him? I don't know anything about him. All I know, a couple of the guys I have on the podcast are friends with him, and I know he's involved with building kids' schools.
Dude's an amazing fighter.
Well, yeah, and he was a great fighter. Yeah, fuck, what a fighter! A UFC fighter.
I thank him for his service.
So did he go over there?
He did. Yeah.
And you're saying that there's some controversial mixed reports on.
There's a lot of controversy surrounding that. Yeah. And there's a lot of controversy and a lot of people that were supposed to get in or, could have gotten in definitely suffered because of the situations that presented themselves once Tim Kennedy showed up.
Okay. And the reason why you don't want to talk about it, and then I'll leave you alone, is because why? You don't want to say anything negative about the situation?
Listen, the past is the past. I just know that it directly affected a lot of operations that were going on the ground. There wasn't a lot of communication with other people that were there.
Okay.
And it became a total shit show at Blackgate. Yeah. And hey, I commend the guy for going to help. If he helped as many people as his organization claims to have helped, fantastic. Great. I personally, I would be very open to a conversation with him to kind of understand further. But what happened at that gate definitely screwed things up for a lot of people.
That's inside a plane?
Yeah.
That plane takes off like that? No seatbelts, no masks? Are those people vaccinated?
During the evacuation, they might, maybe they wrote vax cards in crayon. Maybe I don't know.
I cannot. Have you ever been in one of those?
Good question.
Have you ever been in one of those?
C-17. Yeah. I've pulled patients off the back of them.
Caleb, have you been in one?
Yeah.
You flew in one of those?
I was in the Air Force, didn't fly much, sadly.
It's not super comfortable. It's like
Caleb,
sitting in
you ever been in one that's that crowded? Let me see that picture again.
Absolutely not.
But did you sit on the floor when you were in there?
No, there's like little net seats on the sides. They're not
fold down
installed
or something?
in this one. Yeah. I can't remember if they install them or if they fold, but it's like cargo netting and you just sit on it and then you're just on that for a while.
And that guy behind Tim Kennedy, what's he doing? He's just standing watch. He's like eyes and ears for what's going on inside the plane.
Yeah, he's probably a load master or a chief or something.
Paul, are all these dudes tripping? Are all the guys in the U.S. military like what?
Yes, they're all mushrooms.
Are all the guys who work for the U.S. military like they don't prepare you for anything like this ever?
No. I think being a medic, I was prepared for like humanitarian stuff and like mass casualty incidents, stuff like that. But I don't think anyone was prepared for anything like this.
Is that what you are, Caleb? You're a medic?
Yeah, we have the same job.
Yeah.
And Caleb's going to hate me for this. And are you in the Air Force, Caleb?
Yeah.
Shit. I figured it out after a year. I'll have to ask you again. Don't get carried away. We're not that
Space Force?
No.
It's so weird that that's a branch now.
Can't believe it.
Do you know anyone who's in the Space Force?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, both you guys do. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. They're kind of oddballs, honestly.
They're like weirdos? Yes. They're weird?
Yeah. There's only one guy that I've met that's not, he's in the Space Force and he's not weird. Everybody else is like a comm guy, like cyber. So they're just literal nerds. Wow. It's hilarious.
I can't let it go. Meaning this guy who originally contacted this guy. So you started this operation with some other guys. Someone reached out to you. And then after going down the road a bit, another guy who had a good network said, hey, let's bring our teams together and let's find a way to secure our comms. And so you went with them. And then what you're saying is then when other people tried to come in and help, like Tim Kennedy, and that they were outside of your group, it maybe caused.
I'm going to stop. I'll stop you. I'll break it down.
Okay.
So we don't get any of this misconstrued. So, all right. So Tim Kennedy, there were a few other organizations that were on the ground. And like I said, great effort helping people. I wish there was more communication, and less leverage. It's taken me a lot to even really open up about this stuff and start telling the story more.
How come?
I never wanted it to seem like it was for personal gain. I talked to someone.
Well, it doesn't come across like that at all. We're just all curious as shit. By the way, it doesn't come across like that this much. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone that was on the ground, and he did multiple interviews, and he pretty much we were talking about. I was like, yeah, CNN. He had just interviewed with CNN, I believe, and I was like, yeah, CNN just hit me up for an interview. He's like, why didn't you do it? I was like, well, I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm doing and what we're doing. And additionally, I didn't feel like I had anything important to say. Like, he covered everything I thought I would have said. And he was on the ground.
Who's he? Tim Kennedy?
No, Jericho Denman.
Oh, okay.
And that dude's a stud. Absolute stud.
Okay.
So kudos to him for everything he did.
Hey, by the way, people, if you're going to name your kid Jericho, he's going in the military, or he's going to own a bow, or he's going to kill something. Just so you know.
He
name
was
your kid Jericho.
He was a Ranger. I think his brother is a Ranger, and his father was a Ranger as well. So, dude's got a lineage of just killing shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's him right there.
So, okay, and so where was the confusion when other people started jumping in? Like, what? It was just bad comms.
Yeah, so for us, we were noticing all this stuff. That's why we kind of broke away and did our own thing, and it became very apparent. So we pulled all of our resources together. We started this thing called the network, and within Signal, built out different groups, so to speak. Right. So each operation for we had like an OpSen, so like an op center, and then from there we would just break down whether it was a specific operation or a specific task. And we had different people allocated to different groups. So we kind of created basically the people that needed specific information had that information. No one else had that information. And that's how we ran our operation successfully. And our goal was to make sure no one got killed. And I think we met that. And all of us were very relieved that happened. We did have a close call. But fortunately that panned out. But so just within these other groups, there was a ton of leaks, right? So perfect example is John. So I basically got put in charge of this overarching group called the network, and John and I, along with Tristan, who at the time was an active Green Beret. He's out now. He actually fortunately moved to Philly, so we see each other occasionally. He and I, so John and I had began to move this one family, and we had a OGA operator who they're like contractors. So
OGA,
yeah. So
other government agencies.
Thank you.
So basically, a military contractor. He was moving to this family to grab them. We had briefly mentioned to another organization that this was going on. Well, this operator got there to meet this family. This family was waiting for this operator, and like 500 other people showed up. So that put us in a pretty precarious spot.
Literally 500?
Literally 500 people.
It's a fucking full mob.
Yeah. So like we have this one guy sitting on a bus with a rifle, like waiting to pick this family up. And all like this flood of people shows up, and luckily it panned out. Luckily, no one got hurt. And and we managed to get the people and get in. But yeah, there were situations like that where information was just being passed out way too easily, and a lot of lives were put at risk.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the end of the day, is that dude in the van an American?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts. At the end of the day, that guy's doing something that's completely out of his fucking Call of Duty, right? I mean, there's no requirement. Yeah, I mean, he's threatening the happiness of the fucking 100 people who know him at home, his wife, his kids, his mom and dad, and yeah, it's fucking nuts. There's a component of massive selfishness to it in the component of massive selflessness. And no one should be jeopardized. Everyone should be doing something to help support those people, not put those people at further risk.
Yeah. And I mean, it became, there were people involved with other organizations that should have never been involved. And, I'm thankful those people wanted to help and give their support and stuff. But, I'll say, right?
It's the mother-in-law scenario. It's when your mother-in-law comes to your house and she thinks she's helping and she's just fucking causing chaos. She's interfering in every fucking routine and protocol in the house, and everything's getting fucked up.
Yeah.
I hope that resonates with a lot of you.
That was kind of where it was going, right? So it got pretty crazy. I mean, most of us had minimal sleep. I remember I was talking to Tristan. I'd probably been up for about 6 days at this point, and maybe, a 45-minute nap here or there if I could. It was around 5:30 in the morning, and I was talking to Tristan. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to try and get a few hours of sleep. I'll talk to you later. And this guy calls me. It's an Afghan number. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I answer, and then he starts sending me, like, I can't really hear him. He starts sending me voice notes on WhatsApp. And this guy sounded like he was about to die. Like he was getting just crushed by people at Abbey Gate. And I still have all the voice notes. It was I was certain the guy was going to die. I called Tristan. I'm like, this guy is fucked.
And did you know him? Was he a guy that you guys were working to get?
He got my number from whoever, pretty much, right?
Oh, but and that could fuck everything up if your number got passed out.
That guy, yep. Yeah, my number was passed out. I was getting called. People were calling my mom at one point.
So this guy had someone. This guy had someone take a picture of him and then sent it to you and said, "No."
So he was taking pictures. He was just showing me where he was. So I told him. I wish I had posted more of that, but I had shown. So he had sent me photos of himself. I sent him the green feet. He knew.
How did you know to vet him? How do you know he's not a guy with an IED on him?
So that's the thing, right? So I had to talk to him and get all the specific stuff from him, all the specific information beforehand. And I did. I have no idea where in the world this guy is now, but he was convinced my name was Charlie because that was the call sign for the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He ended up getting to the PJs on the ground. They grabbed him, got him in, and he was very lucky. But
wow. I can't imagine doing that by myself. I would definitely. I mean, I guess I have a wife and kids. I also can't imagine being in that situation with my wife and my kids.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. The service members that were there, a lot of them weren't in country. They were flown in specifically for this. It's not like, and I mean, they had no idea what was going to transpire.
Can you tell me the story about the close call?
There were a few of them. So, close call. Are you talking about from the text?
No, I just earlier you had mentioned we got all the people that we tried to get out. We got out safely, but there was a close call.
Yeah, I mean, like the bus.
It sounds like everyone was a close call.
Yeah, to be honest, let's be clear. To be honest, yes, everyone was a close call. But so I would say Ganwick is probably the epitome of a close call. So basically, what ended up happening, I'll mention Rob again. Shout out to Rob. He got a phone call from a allied, like one of our allies, a special operator over there. He got a call from him saying, "Hey, we got this. We have a joint asset for the U.S. and that country, and we need to get him out." He's like, high priority from the top. Need to get him out.
Okay,
Like,
so
okay.
so someone in the NATO forces, like a French guy, let's say, calls and says, "Hey, this is an important asset to both France and the U.S. Can you
Yes.
get this guy out?" Is it one guy or is it multiple guys?
One guy.
Okay.
So one guy.
What makes someone a valuable asset, Paul?
He was a special operator who also supported various intelligence agencies.
But he was an Afghan.
Yes.
There's Afghans that get the title special operator?
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
we
are,
so I mean that was kind of the special forces mission set over there, and then I believe naval special warfare also was in that role. Pretty much every special operations task force from the U.S. at one point or another was doing that, where they were training Afghans in those roles.
So whether it was true or not, someone cared enough about this guy to vouch for him.
Oh, it was true. This dude he's a hard motherfucker.
And he knows some shit. He's like a double agent Taliban guy.
He never did any like double agent shit to my knowledge, but he did some shit.
Okay,
for sure.
And he's born in Afghanistan, man. And he's born there. Yes. He's a local. Okay,
yeah, he's a very wanted man.
Okay.
So as this is all transpiring, that call comes in. He's across the city at an airport, or at a house rather, from the airport, and they have no vehicle. So we're trying to figure this out as this is happening, and this is how it would work, right? Like the universe kind of just delivers. As this is happening, one of my buddies who was involved in the group, who works for a defense contractor, hits me up, and he's like, "Hey, I have a contracted bus. I really everyone on it is either a vetted, Afghan or an American citizen, and I need to get it into the gate." But at this point, no one had gotten a bus into the gate. So I started.
Because how the fuck do you open the gate without everyone storming in, right?
Well, exactly, right? So you basically have to utilize American forces at that point to hold the line, get the vehicle in. So at this point, no buses had gotten in. I made some phone calls. This was that conventional dude I had mentioned. He came in. Dude's an absolute legend for this. I knew that I could kind of leverage this guy's position of being, a very high profile individual that both these governments needed. And I started talking to that guy's command. I talked to this guy's handler, and basically an operator was supposed to come grab him when the bus got there. That was kind of the deal.
So you told these people on this bus, these people on this bus were like, "Hey, we need to get in," and you said, "Yeah, but you got to pick my guy up first."
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, "Yo, this guy and his family need to get on your bus, and I'll make sure the bus gets in."
Oh, and his family. Yeah,
so him plus his family. Yeah. And what ends up happening, and can you pull the photo of him up? It should be. I think you know which photo, but what ends up happening is they're at the house getting ready to leave to go meet up with this bus at a rally point, and this Taliban hit squad shows up. So now Gamwick had to do what he had to do, and ended up engaging them with his personal rifle, and kind of schwacked a few, and then they basically rolled out and just left, went to the bus.
Can you imagine? And wow.
So that's them.
Shit, he's got a big family. I think he's got 4 people with them.
Yep. Yeah. And like a sequin shirt, which to me is always amazing.
So he has to kill some guys and then say goodbye to his house for the last time. That guy never went. Yes. Is that guy in the US now?
He's in the US. Yeah. Yeah. And he's I've been trying to help him find a job. I actually got to reach back out to him. I haven't talked to him in about a month. But, we're trying to help him get employment. He's a great dude. And, he's super thankful. Like, he sends me photos of his kids and stuff. And, yeah.
Is that inside the airport?
That's inside the airport. So that was basically their proof of life photo. So the dude who got them in, and his page is Scope Set Culture. That's his brand that he runs. So if you guys want to support, he does some amazing work. So he was the conventional soldier at that gate that really saved a lot of lives, and just super selfless the entire time.
It says I'm at a website that says Soft Scope Culture. What's he sell? Oh, shirts.
Yeah, shirts, patches, hats, stuff like that.
See that vehicle in the background? That thing that looks like some armored vehicle.
Yep.
Is that the kind of shit we left behind?
Those were left behind. Yeah. Basically, they're rendered as inoperable as they could be by whoever was on the ground, most likely. But I mean, who knows if I'm sure China, Russia, Iran probably got their hands on them to understand the technology better. That would be my guess.
Why did they just blow everything up?
They did blow up a lot of stuff for sure.
Why wouldn't they? Why wasn't it part of the plan to evacuate the goods? Too much work?
I feel like that's always built into the budget too. It's just like leave shit,
God, it's so weird. Is that story really true? Like, like the stories you hear, like the equipment we left would build like the 22nd strongest army on the planet, or like, did we really leave that much shit there? Did anyone ever tell you like, holy fuck, I saw a row of helicopters as far as the eye could see?
I don't know. I don't know personally. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to have some type of opinion on it, but there we go. There's
the Afghans military.
But honestly, who really wants a Humvee? Let's be clear here. Like, I don't.
So only 4 helicopters were left behind and 2 tanks.
Yeah, and I mean, so here weirdly, so if you look at this number in terms of helicopters, I feel like they probably had more Russian-made helicopters that were utilized by like the CIA and stuff that probably aren't listed there. But
could you put look up, Caleb, what was left at Hamid Karzai Airport? That was the airport considered a military base, a U.S. military base?
Not leading up to it.
No. Okay. So
no.
was the equipment that was left left there at the airport?
There was a good amount of equipment left there for sure, but I mean, we're talking like multiple bases, like Bagram, Kandahar, various other.
So it wasn't just one base we left. We just picked up and left the whole country. We evacuated several bases.
Yeah.
And they congregated at the airport and then lifted
off.
Like
Bagram, they just like dipped out in the middle of the night. They're like, all right, see you, bye. Like the Afghans were pissed. Like some Afghan general came out. He's like, they just left in the middle of the night.
Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Is any of this like hard on you? Like, do you struggle with any of this? Did you see things, hear things? Is there any, how's your life?
I definitely struggle with like, the people I couldn't get out. There was a guy I worked with for a long time after, and it became very taxing, and unfortunately he couldn't get out. His family, he and his family are still there. He's a amputee. He was a Afghan special operations, lost his leg in a targeted attack, and he was directly supporting U.S. Special Forces, and we couldn't get him out. And that definitely, I carry that with me for sure.
Was this more traumatic for you than your 4 years in?
It's a different kind of trauma, I'd say, right? Like, this was completely unexpected. And I mean, I think the weirdest moment during it was,
maybe traumatic's not the right word. Harder to process. I'll use the word process. Traumatic.
Yeah, it's harder. I think it's harder to process for everyone because it was a total clusterfuck that none of us expected in terms of being involved in. But I think one of the weirder mornings, and again, I'll say this, I was never in Afghanistan, and I woke up. This was actually the same night where I helped that guy get in, and I finally went to sleep, and I woke up. Like 3 hours later, I went to sleep maybe around like 8 in the morning. woke up around 11, and I thought I was in Afghanistan.
Oh,
It was
wow.
fucking weird.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I had to like snap out of it. I was like, where the fuck am I? You know, and
Wow.
like that was how long I had been like sleep deprived. Like, you know, I was like, I remember I was on phone calls with people like snapping, just like yelling at them because like I this one congressman's aide who wouldn't allocate, he basically wouldn't allow us to speak to the congressman after multiple phone calls and numerous other things. And he kind of had the audacity to tell us how he was a veteran. And John and I fucking lost it on the phone. We're like, fuck you. Like, just lost it on this guy because we're like, dude, like, you're talking about being a veteran, but you're not willing to actually put it on the line right now and help these people and help us. Well, we're, you know, or like,
do you think that they didn't want to talk to you to keep it arm's distance in case that something went sideways and they could,
most
you
likely.
know, have plausible deniability? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's what it was throughout, right? Like I remember, you know, and again, I don't have any, I got to be very real with this, because I just like, I don't have any animosity. Like no one knew what the fuck to do during the situation. Right. But I do think there was a level of, I remember calling a very high ranking individual's office, and it was a Saturday night, and his aide was like, yeah, he's out at dinner. And I'm like, oh, I fucking wish I could be out at dinner too, because I'm a fucking civilian and I should be out at dinner right now. Right. And this dude's out at dinner, and me and a bunch of other veterans and you know, other individual, even some active duty military folks were actively engaged in this in our free time. And I think that was hard to process. And again, that's not the government. That's just individuals you have to deal with. Like,
It's so unbelievable. It's like you know, you hear about startups like, you know, Microsoft or Apple starting in a garage, and it's
yeah,
cute. This isn't cute. This is like a startup to save people's lives that someone else had massive resources didn't do, right?
yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
like you're standing out there with your hose putting out your neighbor's house as it burns down while the fire department's just off like cleaning their truck. Like there's a piece of it that just does not make sense at all. It's so and then on the other hand, God, you got to be so thankful for technology.
yeah. And that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, the fact that we were able to coordinate these efforts through literally WhatsApp and Signal. And big shout, like seriously, the Signal, the folks that work on Signal, I, you know, that is the encryption and everything there, because obviously WhatsApp's not the best in terms of that. The folks that are working over at Signal are really doing great work, especially when it comes to like humanitarian side of things.
Who owns Signal?
I don't know. I think it's this like, I think it's actually like a volunteer run thing.
Because God knows WhatsApp is as corrupt as their parent company, I have to assume. I tried to get my Instagram account back this morning again for the 1,000th time. Signal is now developed by Signal Messenger LLC, a software company founded by Moxie, Marlon Spike, and Brian Acton in 2018, which is wholly owned by a tax-exempt nonprofit. Okay, so it is just owned by one person.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's all sorts of conspiracy theories that that's really just an FBI or CIA
maybe
company.
But what isn't anymore?
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know.
Right. He sold the company now, though, Eric Utley. God, there's a smart group of people in here.
Much smarter than me. Thank you for that information.
And then it sounds like this thing never winds down because you're attached to these people for eternity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now it's, you know, you're kind of bonded to them, I think, in a lot of ways. And I mean, it was hard to really separate myself from it. Like, I think there were some like weird ones too. I had a photographer reach out to me, you know, based on my background. He had followed me, I think, for a while, and I tried to help him get out, and he had no, you know, just a young photographer that had no No, he wasn't. He never worked for the American government or any, NATO governments, nothing like that. He's like, dude, I just need to get the fuck out of here. I was like, well, like let me see what I can do, right? And trying to help this dude, and he was worried because he's a decently followed photographer on Instagram. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do here, and it was really funny because his sister had been to the Netherlands, and I'm like, oh, like let's start reaching out to some Dutch people and see if we can organize something here. And this Dutch photographer hit me up, and he started making some phone calls, and we ended up figuring out that we could get them out because his sister had a Dutch visa. But everyone was like, yo, you need to say that you're her son.
Oh.
They get to the gate, and she goes, he's my brother. And the Dutch soldiers like threw him off the gate. And he like falls down, like breaks his arm. He's like, his sister just left, dipped out of the country. He's like stuck there still. But I mean, he still posts photos, like, stuff like that. And I mean,
holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's crazy, right? Stuff like that happened, and I'm laughing about it as like a nervous reaction, but yeah, that type of shit happened there. There were some weird stories where you're just like, how?
I just typed in Afghanistan into Google just to see what the headlines are. Student killed as bomb blast hits Afghan school. At least 15 killed in Afghanistan school bombing. 24 wounded. Biden spokesperson on Pentagon's new findings on Afghanistan exit as a disaster. Would you sum it up as a disaster?
I would. Yeah. I mean, I in terms of what it could have been, yeah.
A year in the Taliban escalates its war against girls and education.
Talked about that early on.
White House pushes back on bombshell. Department of Defense report on Afghanistan withdrawal.
Bruce Wayne asked a question about what does he do now. Are you referring to me or to the photographer I mentioned?
You. What are you doing
Me?
now? Yeah, I know what you're doing now.
I work in a marketing gig for a great company called Edgar Sherman Design. So I do that mostly, trying to get my freelance business back off the ground. Maybe we'll see, but that's about it.
And you're in what state?
Well, I'm in Philly, but I've been actually living in my truck for the better part of a year. So I was out west.
You weren't living in your truck in Philly, were you?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Oh,
No way.
Yeah.
Okay. Hard pass on that. Yeah.
Wait, but you're in Philly now. Why are you in Philly of all the places to be?
So I'll break down the story that kind of.
Please tell me there's a girl. Please tell me there's a girl.
There isn't a girl.
Oh, that's a nice rig. Wow.
Yeah, man. So that's home. And I'm super thankful I actually built that when I did. Because basically 2 weeks after all the Afghan stuff, I lost my job. Was never given a reason, just lost my job. On a Thursday night, I got a text from or I didn't even get a text. I got an email, and I wouldn't have even seen it. So I get this email and I text him and I'm like, yo, am I getting fired tomorrow? And he's like, just bring in your stuff. And I'm like, so I'm getting fired. Cool. So the next day I go in and lose my job.
You don't know why you were fired?
I don't. I mean, there were internal issues at the company. I'll be clear on that. But no, I was never given a reason.
Internal issues with you? Like you'd been fighting with someone?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, it is what it is. No bad blood anymore. But I lost my job. Kind of bounced around for a bit. The same week, my apartment, because I was living in Florida, they raised my rent like $900 a month, because Florida things.
Because Californians were coming in and fucking your shit up.
New Yorkers mostly.
Perfect.
But I'm from Philly, so it's not much. It might actually be worse. So, but
And so that was your rig. You had that set up, and you're like, "Fuck it, I'm hitting the road."
Yeah. So once I kind of like turned in my keys, my mom had COVID, weirdly, but she's susceptible to actually having severe COVID because she had COPD. So she ended up in the ICU for 7 or 8 weeks.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And then she recovered miraculously. She ended up in a rehab facility, which almost killed her. But she was, I believe, the most severe case of COVID at that hospital that recovered. And I ended up at home for 4 months taking care of her with my father. And then basically just decided late spring, I was like, screw it, I'm going to go on the road. And I lived out west, just in the backcountry mostly. So, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, just bounced around. It was really dope.
Wow, that is cool. Just by yourself?
Yep, by myself, and then came back to help family for a little bit.
Do you have a dog?
I do, yeah.
Did you take the dog on the trip?
I wanted to. He unfortunately is not the best adventure companion. He's a 100-pound pit bull that is unfortunately scared of the world.
Sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
No, he's like, he's way too friendly for that.
That's what you all say. That's what you guys are.
Oh God, here we go.
I still got a little liberal in me. I don't like
a
pit bull. I believe the pit bull propaganda. I don't believe the COVID propaganda. I believe the pit bull.
I don't know, man.
Here's the
thing.
thing.
Will cuddle with you for hours.
Here's the thing with those dogs. I have the #1 biting dog in the world. It's the Chihuahua. More bites per dog than any other dog. The thing is,
don't judge my pit bull if you have a Chihuahua. We can't. No.
The thing is that a Chihuahua bites you and runs. I used to have Danes. They're very similar pit bulls. Once they grab you, it's to the death. Have you ever seen your dog fight?
No, because he's not fighting anything.
All right, fine.
He lays on the couch. That's all he cares about.
I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to put a note. Pit bulls are nice on your pit.
He's going to put a note that says, pit bull owner, do not engage.
Pit bulls are nice. There, you've convinced me. I really appreciate you coming on. And thank you for what you've done. It's cool. How old are you?
31.
Yeah. You're going to, all of that stuff you've done. I promise you this. All the stuff you've done is in your life, and all those things, they will flower. Like right now, it's just shit. It's just fertilizer, right? But those memories and those things in the next 10, 20 years, you'll draw from, and bounds of creativity will come from you. I mean, so much creativity is now going to spawn from you, from the life experience you have. And all those skills that you acquired. I mean, I know you know all this. I hope this isn't coming across as a lecture, but
no, I appreciate this. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be fucking nuts, and it's no joke. I mean it with 100% conviction that you would be an amazing executive at Twitter. They need companies that need to be fucking agile and that have tremendous impact. Need people like you. And so, I mean, to someone with a brain, they're going to realize that there's no Harvard MBA, there's no Stanford MBA, no one has the experience you have, and someone smart's going to see it and take advantage of you, and let them use you. You're an amazing tool and an amazing asset, and let them use you. Find someone. That's the greatest thing in life, if you can find someone to use you. So many people are afraid to be used. You want to be used.
Depends what context, I guess, right?
Well, as long as you just be honest and stay with
like
your
Wednesday
integrity.
Night context, or
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I just love friends that just know how to use me, and someone's gonna figure it out. Someone's gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be awesome.
You know how we met through Alpha Brew, right? Like,
right.
Ricky, the founder, he's my best friend, and
what's Ricky's
we work
last
very
name?
well. And Doyan.
Okay, is he Armenian?
No.
What's his last name again?
Doyan. Doyon.
Oh, my mom's gonna fucking rip me for that. That I didn't know how to spell that, or heard it wrong. It sounds like it could end in IAN. Doyan, Doyian.
It could be, yeah.
But it's not. He's Korean.
Apparently, Heidi wants to use me, so.
Yeah, Heidi would love to.
Slide in the DMs.
Heidi would love to use you. All right, brother.
Bring your rig to Wisconsin.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you the man.
Have me on.
Yep.
guys are
You have my
awesome.
phone number. Stay in touch.
For
You're
sure.
great. You're a great dude. And I appreciate you helping out the podcast by coming on and giving your time and helping me grow this thing.
Oh, you guys are amazing. And I can't wait to see where this goes.
Awesome. All right, dude. Stay in touch.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Ciao.
See you, Paul.
See you guys.
Doesn't even seem real.
It's insane.
Doesn't even seem real.
Just looking around at all the stuff that we have here,
Yeah.
and then just imagining trying to move all of those people and all of their shit.
Are you fenced in where you're at?
Yeah.
Is it a good fence? You trust it?
No.
No. Oh, it's not 48 inches of cinder block 20 feet high.
No, it's like razor wire that's probably about waist high in some places.
You know what's funny is I always look at airports. I'm like no airport is ever secure. Like I used to always drive right by the San Diego airport when I lived down there. I'm like, fucking any Tom, Dick, or Harry could just walk out onto the tarmac.
Absolutely. It's not secure.
Yeah, it's nuts. Beep test. Being advised not to be used in Ireland.
You never had to do that?
Oh, I had to do beep test, but I was a pussy. I would just tap early. I was like the first kid out.
Like you hit the minimum, and you're like
some fat girls out, and then me, and then the remain, and then that's it.
That way you don't feel bad about yourself.
No, just that like she truly probably couldn't run, and I could run a little bit. There must be a good beep test app. I'm going to start doing those with my kids. I have my kids run line sprints at the tennis courts, but beep tests are cool.
That'd be perfect for them.
Yeah, they would love that. Oh, shit. Paul Saladino released a statement on Liver King. Oh, let's go look at that. I have said from the beginning, I don't give a fuck if that guy's like what he's on. I don't care. And I don't, I never was, I still take a handful of those pills every day. And I got his protein powder back here, which is tasty as all get out. And I was never taking those pills thinking I'm going to look like the Liver King. His issue of lying about it, that's on him. I still like Brian Johnson. Like I told you, as soon as that video came out, I called him. And I thought except for that whole thing about him being a charlatan, what a charlatan was. Other than that, I thought the piece the guy did, Plates and Dates guy, I thought it was pretty respectful. And I thought the piece Hiller did was respectful. Just hating on people for shit. I mean, okay, let's see. My response to Liver King steroids. I'm deeply disappointed. Integrity is everything. By the way, these guys are good friends. They're like family members. And it appears that Brian has not been truthful. As his friend for more than 5 years, long before social media presence, I feel misled and disappointed like so many of you. I don't. It's not on me. I don't have trust issues because it's not a metric I use. Yes, if I found out my wife was sleeping with another guy, it would fucking break my heart. At the end of the day, I don't have any fucking control over that. It's not how I live my life. It's not how... I hate to be so fucking arrogant, but it's not how enlightened people or people who are on the path to enlightenment live. Though our message have been similar in the past, they have always been distinct. Yeah, come on, Paul. It's your homie. Really? Is now the time to say that? I love Paul too. I continue to believe deeply in the power of dietary choices like an animal-based diet to create health in humans. And I believe this message is far too important to be sullied in any way by untruthfulness or lack of integrity on Brian's part. My mission has been and will always, because Brian's a huge advocate of that, right? But Liver King is like I think the Plates and Dates guys said it and everyone said it. Like his message is clean. His message is cool. His message is healthy. My mission has been and will always be to create content and share knowledge that helps people heal from illness and find fullness of life. I will always remain truth. So because he doesn't feel obligated to tell the truth about what kind of drugs he takes, I don't know. I tell you guys nonstop not to eat sugar, And I purposely hide from you my kid's birthday party where we're eating an ice cream cake. Let it be known. I purposely hide it from you. I do not want you to see it.
Doesn't mean that doesn't happen, of course.
And if you're disappointed that you can't look like Liver King, like you're never going to look like anyone. Even if you did steroids, you're not going to look like Liver King.
You'd have to be doing $12,000 a month worth of steroids.
I wonder. Good morning, Souza. I wonder if I know they're such close, good friends. I wonder if Paul passed that by Liver King before he posted it, or if he said, "Liver King, will you write it for me?" I hope it's something like that. Hey, it's the same thing along the lines. I'll never forget when the Joe Rogan video came out. That compilation of him using racial slurs came out, and Jocko Willink made a statement that was supposed to be defending him. And I'm thinking, God, who needs enemies when you have friends like Jocko? Like, fuck off. It's like when people post in the YouTube comments, I don't agree with everything Sevan says.
I hate that fucking line.
Or yeah, he is creepy, but I really like his show. Like, hey, go fuck yourself.
Creepy.
Like you post on Reddit, you post on YouTube, like you attack, like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't need you to post anything. I really love my wife, but those globs of hair on the side of the shower really piss me off. By the way, my wife doesn't do that. But it's like, fuck off.
At this time, we're rethinking our relationship with him.
You know why I'm sensitive to that too is because my dad's a great guy, by the way. Love my dad to death. So fucking cool. She shows me unconditional love. But my dad's the kind of guy where no matter what, something has to be tweaked. So if I have him over for dinner and he's eating, he's like, this could use a little more garlic. This is great. It's never just like,
That's
like,
just
dude,
him,
Brian,
though. You
yeah.
can't internalize that.
Even if you did solve the problem, he wouldn't be satisfied.
All these, say that again.
That even if you did solve the problem, he wouldn't be satisfied.
Yeah. Hey, you know what you made me think, Caleb? You know what I'm going to do? Because that is my dad's thing. This could use more garlic. Next time he's over, I'm just going to have a handful of garlic, like behind my back. He's like, this could use a little more garlic. I'm going to be like,
no shit. Wow. Look, I have more.
Bam. It's your world, Dad. I'm just living in it. Yeah.
What a great line.
Not just that's a great idea. Should I grab you some more?
No, just solve the problem immediately. Don't even ask questions.
Bam.
Fucking garlic.
The thing too is it's like we had someone on the other day, and it's like, it's actually talking to my sister about this last night. She was telling me that Jesus spent a lot of time by himself, but he also did hang out with, like, you know, some shady element. And I've hung with, oh, there's my sister right there. And I've hung out with a ton of shady element. I hung out with a ton of shady element. I mean, but you do need time by yourself. You need a lot of time by yourself. By the way, great. We had that guest on the other day, and I can't remember. He was a Christian. I was like, yeah, but what would Jesus do? I don't think he'd be hating on those people. He slap him around. Didn't he flip a table over once at a bar mitzvah, at a bazaar?
He did.
He was angry. Hulk Hogan went around saying, train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Didn't say, I'm Terry Bolla acting for the WWE. Oh, is that his name? Yeah.
He's a billboard.
I am really glad that in that breakdown of the plates and dates guy, in that email, he did show that he takes all of his own supplements. And by the way, I was on the phone last night with Hiller, and we're like, you know how like these actresses release these tapes where they're taking the cock? And they leaked. You know what I'm talking about? So what it does is, the number one form of media on the planet is pornography. By far, hands down, there's no second place. And so but people in that business are ostracized. What a trippy phenomenon, right? So you're the number one form of downloaded and consumed media, But if you're in that, you can't make the jump to mainstream media. Like you can't be like sucking dick on PornTube and then be reporting the news on CNN because they're hypocrites. Even though all those people after they get off work at CNN are going over to their PornTube. The whole thing is, yeah, that is what hypocrisy is. But anyway, so what they do to get around that is they release the tape about themselves on purpose so that they're not a pornographer and they can stay mainstream, but play the victim, right? And so you got screwed, right? So it's kind of cool. You now get to have the most downloaded piece of content in the world. You banging some basketball player, but you don't have to be ostracized. It's a masterful. So Hiller and I were like, maybe that's what the Liver King did.
Like release those on purpose. I mean, he's being talked about now more than probably ever, right? Yeah. And one thing that was interesting in those emails, I think you already talked about it, was that the fact that he actually follows the regiment that he preaches, other than the fact that he may also be taking steroids, right?
The first thing I thought is, does he really sleep on that piece of wood? Like
that's what I thought.
That's the first thing I thought.
Would have talked about his sleep, like him like waking up multiple times throughout the night. Is that what you're referring to in those emails? When he talks about that to his doctor, he's like, I sleep like shit. I was like, yeah, well, you're on a freaking pallet.
Oh, no. I just thought if he's lying about the steroids, is he lying about the wooden pallet? Oh, wait. And Liver King reached out to MPMD.
More plates, more dates.
The guy who did the hour-long investigative journalism.
Oh, yeah. I know. The whole thing is interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's all conspiracy.
They work together. He's part of
it. I'm just glad that those pills, I looked at those pills and I was just glad to see that the Liver King did at least take those pills and he still takes those pills. Cause I don't want that. Like, what if I find out like that's really just sawdust in there?
Hey, if it matters to
your fiber.
You believe it, it works. Hey, we got to call it a couple minutes.
Oh yeah. At 9.
Yeah. That's why I jumped on here too.
Oh, okay.
After the show finished up.
Get off.
Okay.
Just a little.
Then I should.
Reminder.
Then we should go. I'm gonna. I need to eat. I need to have like a half a banana before that meeting or something. Yeah. Said it. A banana. Oh my God. Do you guys know? I was talking to Hiller yesterday about what persimmons are. Maybe we should just have our meeting live. I was talking to Hiller about what persimmon. Hiller didn't know what persimmons are. I have so many persimmons. I've been eating like 2 persimmons a day right now. Do you guys know what those are? Oh no, Caleb.
Looks like a tomato.
Oh shit. I guess it's a California phenomenon.
I've never had one, but I know it exists.
Yeah, I've only heard of it like more.
They're so good. Don't let anyone tell you how. If anyone needs to know how to eat a persimmon, talk to me. I will tell you all the fucking secrets of how to eat them. How to make them soft so you can spread it on bread like jam if you want, or how to eat them hard so it's like an apple. I can tell you how to make them sweet or how to make them not sweet. I know all the tricks, freezing them, unfreezing them, putting them in the refrigerator. Oh, they're amazing. They're big. They're like the size of an apple. They're everywhere in California now. If you just drive around and look around, yeah, the trees are like that. And they lose all their leaves and they just have these orange balls on them everywhere. They're so good. Yeah. And they're expensive. They're expensive as shit. But around my house, there's just, I think they're probably like $3 a pop. But around my house, there's just thousands of them for free. Tens of thousands, millions. They're so good. Come to, where was this? Come to Indiana. Any grams within 300 miles can make you some. Oh, that's cool. Any grams. That's a grandma.
Yeah, grams.
Okay, I have 2 minutes to prepare for my next meeting. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Oh, let me see. I don't know who's on tomorrow.
It's a programming show right now.
Oh, and that's in the evening. Oh, okay. So, Caleb, are you around tomorrow?
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay. Are you around tomorrow morning? What's your name? Souza. Are you around tomorrow?
No. Coaching.
Mother. Okay. I'd like to do a live call-in show at some point tomorrow. We'll figure something out. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll be on with JR and Taylor tomorrow, maybe some other surprise guests. I know you guys' favorite, John Young, maybe might be coming on. We will be batting around. We'll be talking about the Dubai Fitness Challenge. Hopefully tomorrow morning they'll release the workouts, and then JR and Taylor can tell you how great they are or how shitty they are. Okay. See you guys later. Want to say bye, Caleb?
Bye.
No, bye.